And here we are. I've reached the conclusion. Finally, the day I am seeing Force Awakens, I reached the conclusion of my Star Wars reviews. It's done after today until I see The Force Awakens and I review it tomorrow. So can't wait! Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. And this is going to be pretty spoiler heavy like my other Star Wars reviews, so you have been warned. If you've not seen Revenge of the Sith and you don't want to know anything, don't watch the video. Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith is the prequel that I feel like is the prequel that we needed and the prequel we expected for the first two prequels. Revenge of the Sith answers a lot of questions. It has a lot more positives than negatives. Sure, there are a couple of flaws, but for the most part, Revenge of the Sith is a good movie and is really enjoyable. It's one you don't have to casually watch, where you did with the first two, where you could be like, yeah, I can tune out during this scene, I can turn out doing this scene. A lot of the scenes in here are really relevant, and I like that. The movie begins 3 years after Attack of the Clones. War is everywhere. The Clone Wars have been going on for a while. Obi-Wan and Anakin are going to get their Chancellor back. And actually, I will give props to Hayden Christensen in this movie. I'm not saying that he's a good actor, because I really did bitch him out in my Attack of the Clones review for being a bad actor, and he still is a bad actor. But I will say this about Hayden Christensen in the movie. At least he looks like he's more comfortable playing Anakin than he did in Episode 2. Doesn't make him a better actor or give him an Oscar or anything. He's still pretty shitty in the movie. But at least you can actually relate to him, and at least he and Obi-Wan have this brother type of relationship, and I'm like, okay, where was that in Episode 2? Because they explore that. I'm glad that they actually have, like, this relationship. They're really tight, they're really close, and you can actually tell that they're, like, friends and probably feel more like brothers. And I really like the fact that they get to fight Count Dooku again at the beginning of this movie, because I feel like George Lucas got too much criticism for that lightsaber fight at the end of Episode 2, and I don't blame people who criticize that lightsaber fight, because it's not a lightsaber fight. I don't count it. So he's like, I'm going to have Count Dooku lightsaber fight Anakin and Obi-Wan again at the beginning of this movie while they go and rescue the Chancellor, and it's actually really good. It's a really good lightsaber fight. And the thing I like about this fight is you can also see the relationship between Anakin and Chancellor Palpatine. How big of an impact Chancellor Palpatine will probably be on Anakin's life. Foreshadow. Like I said, it's actually a pretty cool lightsaber fight, and they rescue the Chancellor, and then they come face to face with General Grievous, who should be the coolest part. I thought he was going to be badass. To me, General Grievous is just wasted potential. First of all, he's nothing like he was described. Second of all, he's the third antagonist in the third Star Wars movie. It's like, that's something the original trilogy had that the prequel trilogy didn't. They had one man in the front lines doing everything, whereas the prequel trilogy just has a different antagonist every movie. It just would have been easier if you had like that Vader-esque type of guy, like that person at the front lines just doing everything. He kills Jedi, he collects their lightsabers. I'm like, that's badass. But then later on, he fights Obi-Wan on Utapau. Obi-Wan goes to Utapau, he fights General Grievous. General Grievous pulls out 4 lightsabers with his 4 arms. Obi-Wan has his 1 lightsaber, and Obi-Wan immediately just slashes 2 of his arms off. I'm like, well, that was easy. It's not really a lightsaber fight. I was expecting a cool lightsaber fight and Obi-Wan to have a challenge in that fight. But instead, he just took out Grievous, like, easy. But there was a cool chase in that scene, and then Obi-Wan takes out Grievous in the best way possible. Shoots him with a rips open his chest, shoots him with a blaster, and Obi-Wan just throws the blaster aside and is like, so uncivilized. I love that. That's one of my favorite parts, when a Jedi can't use a lightsaber and he uses a blaster to kill somebody. I'm like, that's great. And the thing about this movie is the fact that it answers questions that we've had, because we've always wondered how Anakin turned to the dark side. And it's actually pretty interesting, and it's actually, I don't know if there's a better way that it could be done. There probably is, and I think George Lucas just didn't think of it, but at the same time, it's just like, you know, what was in the movie, I can roll with. Pretty much Chancellor Palpatine tells Anakin about the Sith Lord named Darth Plagueis and how there was this apprentice that killed him in his sleep, and ultimately Anakin finds out that Palpatine was the apprentice that killed him in his sleep, and he's going to hand him over to the Jedi Council and say, this is the Sith Lord we've been looking for, you're under arrest. And right there and then you're just like, oh, nice job, Anakin, you've come a long way, that's awesome. He's going to take matters into his own hands. He's going to bring a bunch of Jedi with him and go into Chancellor Palpatine's office and arrest him.
Master Windu. I take it General Grievous has been destroyed then. I must say you're here sooner than expected.
In the name of the Galactic Senate of the Republic, you're under arrest, Chancellor.
Are you threatening me, Master Jedi?
The Senate will decide your fate.
I am the Senate.
Not yet.
It's treason, then.
Sith Lord. What the hell was that scream, though? That was hilarious. That flip was cool, but the scream where he's just... Like, I never picked up on that before. That's funny. And it's like, before this, he was just yelling in Anakin's ear. He's like, dark side, Anakin, it's better. But it's funny, because that first asshole that Palpatine kills, his head's turned, like, all the way back here. He's like, is there lightsabers? Are we fighting? I don't see anybody fighting. Why am I back here? And honestly, we find out earlier in the movie that Palpatine tells Anakin that he has a power that can save Padme's life. Anakin wants to keep Palpatine alive because he's like, oh, I get the power to save my wife's life, so why not just, keep him alive? He can help me. He breaks in. Windu's got Palpatine at the sword. Anakin just takes out his lightsaber, chops off Mace Windu's hand. His lightsaber goes flying out the window. Palpatine is just like, no, and uses Force Lightning on Mace Windu. He goes flying out the window, and Anakin's like, what have I done? But this part I don't really like, because Anakin's turn to the dark side is just so sudden and just so abrupt. It's just like, well, that was fast. See Palpatine's all messed up face from his Force Lightning. I always thought that was like Force corruption, not Force Lightning, which I think is kind of weird. But he makes Anakin his apprentice. He's like, yeah, henceforth you'll be known as Darth Vader. Why is he called Darth Vader? That's something I want to know. Why is he called Darth Vader? The movie never answers that question. George Lucas never answers that question. We don't know why the hell he's called Darth Vader. Because? We don't know. He gets on the horn with Commander Cody, who's a commander of the clone army, and he's just like, execute Order 66. And that Order 66 scene, that's a really effective scene. The cloners turn on the Jedi, they end up killing the Jedi. The Jedi are dying. You're just like, oh shit, they're getting their asses handed to them. It's a really sad scene. You're just watching everything, you're like, oh fuck. This is where John Williams' music score really hammers home with the sad stuff like that. It's got a really good score in that part. Oh yeah, and then Yoda's on Kashyyyk, so that he can't be killed. The troopers tried to kill him, and Yoda just beheads them. I'm like, yeah, you're Yoda, you're awesome. And we get to see Chewie. That scene where Anakin's going to the Jedi Temple, he's got all the stormtroopers following him, and the Imperial March music's coming on. Dun, 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 dun. That's a really good scene, but what kills it is the fact that the younglings see him, and they're like, Master Anakin, and just whips out his lightsaber, he's like, and he kills kids. Killing kids, that's just, I don't like the fact that he killed kids. Because Vader would never do that. It just makes Vader look like a bully. And they're bad animatronics. He wipes them out and then he just hangs out, and Obi-Wan goes to Mustafar with the mindset that he has to go kill Anakin, and Yoda's like, well, yeah, that's what needs to happen. Padme goes to Mustafar too, because she doesn't believe Obi-Wan when Obi-Wan's like, yeah, I saw the video of him killing younglings, and she's like, no, I don't believe you. She goes to Mustafar, and then Anakin's telling her that they can rule the galaxy together, and she's like, I don't believe what I'm hearing. You're breaking my heart. But this brings us to the lightsaber fight between him and Obi-Wan, and the lightsaber fight between him and Obi-Wan is really, really cool. Yeah, it's choreographed, it's too clean, and it looks like they're dancing. Who gives a shit? It's awesome. Not to mention, their lightsaber fight gets interrupted by another lightsaber fight. Yeah, Yoda and the Emperor going at it in the Senate. I love when Yoda just shows up, too. He just walks through the corridors, and there's two guards there, and he just force pushes them out of the way. I'm like, haha, yeah, you just got owned, bitches. This Anakin and Obi-Wan lightsaber fight doesn't get interrupted by stupid, boring shit like in the first one or the second one. That one scene in the second one that really didn't have to interrupt the Count Dooku and, Obi-Wan swinging their lightsaber around pissing contest. This one actually gets interrupted by something interesting. You're watching another lightsaber fight while you're watching a lightsaber fight. Awesome. Obi-Wan after this fight, because he ultimately beats Anakin, chops off his arm, his legs, he's gonna be robotic before you know it. And Obi-Wan's like, you were the chosen one! You were supposed to destroy the Sith, not join them. Bring balance to the Force, not live in the darkness. You were my brother, Anakin. I loved you. And then Hayden Christensen in his terrible acting is just like, I hate you. Ultimately, Palpatine finds Anakin, gives him all these robotic parts, gives him a new suit, and he becomes the Vader that we know, and he's like, is Padme okay? Palpatine's like, yeah, she died of a broken heart while she was given childbirth. This is the thing I hate about Vader. Does he have to scream no for everything? Because when he hears this, he's just like, no! Do you have to scream no? Like, you can just have him destroying stuff without saying no. Just like how you could have had him in Return of the Jedi, like you originally did, show him being conflicted about hauling the Emperor's ass over the power generator instead of having him scream no. George Lucas still doesn't understand that actions speak louder than words. However, the final scene of this movie I really like because it's Obi-Wan going to Luke's aunt and uncle's house on Tatooine, dropping off Luke for them. They are staring into the sun, and it's a scene reminiscent of A New Hope when Luke's staring into the sun. Obi-Wan's just looking at them, and he's like, yeah, future might be bright with this one. Not anymore, because tomorrow The Force Awakens. Well, for me, tonight. Some really bad parts in this movie. For instance, the whole love stuff carries over from Attack of the Clones, and there's just this one scene that I think has been picked out by critics and movie reviewers on YouTube. Everybody alike. It's that scene where Padme's brushing her hair, standing by the window, and Anakin's just looking at her, and she's like, take me back to the fields in Naboo, where there was nothing but our love. It's shitty scenes like that where it's just like, it brings the Revenge of the Sith down a little bit. There's a couple more I can't think of off the top of my head. Especially where she's like, I want to have our baby back on Naboo, where everybody will love us. I'm like, shut up. Oh yeah, just to mention, she is pregnant. I do also think that maybe the beginning of this movie could have been shortened up by maybe like 5 minutes, because the beginning of the movies where they have to go and rescue the Chancellor, that whole scene where they're like in the space battle, then they go onto the ship, they fight Count Dooku, that thing's like a half hour long. I think you could have trimmed that up a little bit. So that concludes my reviews of the entire Star Wars saga. Until I see The Force Awakens tonight, I'll review The Force Awakens tomorrow. Hopefully, by the time my Attack of the Clones review gets on YouTube, because it's taking forever, I can get this one on YouTube, and then I can just review The Force Awakens tomorrow, put that on YouTube right away, so I can get this to you. Revenge of the Sith is honestly the best prequel. It's the one I find the most enjoyment out of. It's got the best entertainment value. It actually has quite a good story, too. Not saying that the other prequels don't have any enjoyment in them, because they do, but it's just not as much as Revenge of the Sith, because Revenge of the Sith is the one we've been waiting for our whole lives. We're like, oh, this is the one where Anakin becomes Darth Vader. It answers most of our questions. Some of them go unanswered, which I don't like, but for the most part, they're all answered. There are some really good scenes. This one is the best one for prequels that has, like, the best scenes. And I really love watching Revenge of the Sith when I watch the entire saga on Blu-ray. For more news and reviews on movies, movie trailers, video games, and TV shows, like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter. If you're on YouTube, hit the big red subscribe button, and welcome to Maddenville. And stay tuned for my spoiler-free review of Star Wars The Force Awakens tomorrow. Yeah, spoiler-free. Not spoiling anything for you guys. Adios, amigos.